ever to ever mending his broken ear. Honey baby, honey baby, honey baby, I'm going out for you. By the time break of dawn, my bags are packed, and I'll be gone. As I told, I've done you wrong. Now I'm left here with this old song. Honey baby, honey baby, honey baby, I'm calling out for you.
Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. We are joined today by Mark Hornsby, Director of Music Productions and Artist Relations here at Sweetwater for Sweetwater Studios.
Yep.
Mark, you guys were out in Kansas City at the Folk Alliance doing a pretty incredible recording project out there.
That's right.
Will you tell us a little bit about what was happening with that?
Sure. Our team went out to Folk Alliance. This was the 26th annual Folk Alliance. They're now headquartered in Kansas City. And we went out there with Royer Labs, Mojave Audio, and we set up a pop-up recording studio in a room. It was a little bit bigger than a hotel room, but it was kind of a hotel suite. But it was about the size of a hotel room.
Okay.
And we recorded over 30 bands and over 100, probably 110 songs in 3 days.
Mark, one of the reasons I wanted you to come in and tell us about this project is, first of all, it's a tremendous accomplishment, and you came up with some techniques to really make that work efficiently, to get that many songs recorded in that short a time. But the other thing is that you're dealing with a situation that many of our viewers deal with, in that you weren't in an acoustically ideal situation. You were in basically a hotel room, right?
Yeah, it was a glorified hotel room. It was a little bit bigger. It was a small conference room, but in reality, yeah, we were in a hotel room. So.
Okay. So what did you do to kind of tame the acoustics in that environment?
The first thing we did is set up 2 by 4 foot Auralex Pro Max panels, and they're the ones that come on a microphone stand. So you can adjust the height, you can move them around. One side has the the foam, the absorption, and the other side is pretty flat. And in that particular room, we just common sense, we walked around the room and figured out we were getting most of our reflections out of the corners of the room. So we put one in each corner. Bass was not so much of a problem. The room was actually, it had a main area where we were recording, and then it had a kind of a lawn extension to it where we had some seats for people to come in and watch the performances. So the typical low-end, low mid-range problem you'd face with like an upright bass, it wasn't as predominant as it would be in a small 10 by 10 environment.
Okay.
So we got the Auralex in the corners. The ceiling was pretty good. It was a drop ceiling, and it must have had a lot of insulation up there because we weren't getting a lot of reflection off that. The floor was obviously carpet, so there's our stage, so to speak.
Right. So you're working in just basically a room with some panels on the walls. Now, what did you bring in as far as equipment to complete the studio?
First of all, the recording device. We were recording in Pro Tools 11 on a MacBook Pro with, I think, 8 gigabytes of RAM. We had a Universal Audio Apollo interface.
Okay.
We had an 8-channel Millennium Mic Pre. We had a pair of ATC 25 speakers, and we mostly used those to listen back after takes. Obviously, we didn't have them on when we were recording.
Because you're all in one room, right?
Everybody's in one room.
There was no control.
We're in the room with the artist. And as a sidebar, because it's Americana, folk, bluegrass, that type of music, we didn't use headphones. A lot of those players are used to sitting in a room playing together anyway.
Right.
It's a lot less complicated not to deal with the headphone setup because we were doing live takes. We weren't concentrating on overdubs.
But the engineer had headphones, so he could monitor what was going on.
Yes, myself or Dan would have a set of headphones on and be punching buttons, so to speak. And then microphone-wise, we had all Royer and Mojave. We had the Royer SF24, which is the stereo phantom-powered ribbon mic. We had a pair of Royer 122s, which are also phantom-powered. We had 2 Mojave 300s, which are tube condensers with the variable pattern on the power supply. We had 2 Mojave 301 FET microphones, which are both large diaphragm, variable pattern. We had a stereo pair of Mojave 101s.
Okay, small diaphragms.
And that was pretty much it. We had some other stuff that we didn't get out, but that was our predominant setup through the course of the 3 days.
Right. So over the course of the weekend, were you working mainly with singer-songwriters where it was just a voice and a guitar, or did you have bands, or what were you dealing with as far as performers go?
We had a variety of different musicians, and it's interesting. I would say, in general, probably 60% of them were singer-songwriter guitarists. but a lot of people that attend the conference know each other or have co-written with each other. So they were pulling their friends in saying, hey, why don't you come sit in on my session, and vice versa. I think we had one guy that played on 4 or 5 people different sessions because he had a unique little setup with a Taylor guitar going into a very tiny amp that just had effects coming out of it, and it was neat. So he showed up on a lot of different projects. But yeah, a lot of singer-songwriters playing guitar, which there's definitely ways to approach that. And then we did have a good handful of bands. You know, the Bluegrassers, they would be mandolin, banjo, acoustic guitar, 3 people singing, and upright bass. We'd have trios in there. Someone might just be singing background vocals while the other 2 are playing dual acoustic guitars. So there's a variety of stuff.
Really wide range of stuff. Yeah. And you had 8 channels available using the Millennia and the microphones that you were working with. So you limited things to 8 channels.
Yes, it's 8 channels. It's live, it's 8 channels. The primary source for all of it was the Royer SF-24.
Okay.
So once we got an ensemble set up in the room, we would set the SF-24 out in front of them, pretty much center it on the group, and that would be kind of the baseline for the whole thing. You know, if you can get a stereo mic to sound good on a group, that's a lot of it. You know, and then the rest of the microphones we can blend in or do a combination of. And we also had all the microphones set up on stands. We had a snake coming out to the front to where we could switch microphones fairly quickly. You know, these bands were coming in, they had an hour to record, and some of them were doing average 2 or 3 songs. So they'd come in, we'd get sounds, everybody's guitar sounds different, everybody's setup is different. You know, keep the microphones out available, get them in front of them, get them comfortable, record, play it back at the end, and then we actually gave them the multi-track files on a flash drive to walk out of there with.
Nice.
So it's a nice little assembly line that we set up, so to speak.
And when you're dealing with that fast, having to go from performer to performer to performer, I mean, an hour is not very long, you clearly can't spend a lot of time auditioning microphones and trying things out. What were kind of your go-to setups as far as if you had let's start with, say you had a singer-songwriter come in with a guitar. What was your go-to setup to make that work?
Condensers on the guitar and the vocal with the SF-24 out in front, and I would say select choice of pickup patterns on the mics.
And what does that mean? Tell us about that.
A lot of people will take a pair of microphones, let's say they're in cardioid mode, and put them stereo on a guitar, or one on the guitar and one on the Scener. And by nature, the microphones are picking up each other quite a bit. By using figure 8 mode, and the large diaphragm condensers, you know, have that selection on them, that gives us the ability to put, you know, say a 300 on a vocal up high, put it on figure 8, and it's actually canceling out a lot of the energy that's not right there in front of the capsule. It's not getting all that guitar bleed. It's getting a little bit of it. I mean, you can solo it and hear it, but it's not near as much as it would be the other way. And the same thing on the guitar. We'd use a 2-mic setup on a lot of the guitar tracks where on an acoustic guitar, we'd have a 301 coming in at the guitarist, aimed at the bridge at about 45 degrees. We would have it on figure 8 for the same reason. I don't want a lot of the vocal coming into that microphone. And then we'd use the small diaphragm 101 around the 12th fret. Now typically in a studio environment, if you're using 2 microphones like that, it makes sense to have them both pointed at the guitar. With the 101, it being cardioid, the problem you run into is bleed, and it doesn't have a switch for figure 8 on a small diaphragm condenser. So we ended up actually turning the microphone and pointing it straight down. So if this is the 12th fret position of the guitar, we'd have a microphone here, almost above the strings, maybe close to where it joins the body, and then the 301 would be coming in at this angle, and that was a popular guitar sound. A lot of the guitars we were dealing with, they all sound different. But a lot of folk and Americana music likes Martins or warmer sounding guitars. And a lot of people did have Taylors as well, but sometimes they would put strings on it that made them not sound as bright. You know, they're going for that kind of texture. When we did have a bright guitar come in, or someone really had, you know, some bronze strings on there or a smaller body, then in addition to the 101, we'd put a 122 Royer right next to it, because if it's a singer-songwriter, we had enough channels. Then we had the option later. So instead of, there was a lot of situations like that. We did that on vocals as well, to where we put up a 122 and the 300. Because you know, you're listening on headphones, you're working really fast. Instead of going, oh, let's guess and hope, we had the ability to have a backup plan, so to speak. And when we listen to some of the tracks back here, I'm glad we did it. You know, sceners that really get up in the mask of their face, or have a real pronounced upper mid-range in their vocal performance. That can be harsh on a tube condenser, whereas on a 122 it sounds just fine. So combination of mics, not being afraid to have alternates, you know, there's no wrong, you know, if you got the channels, use them.
Sure,
you know.
sure, and using those polar patterns to prevent the bleed from the instrument into the voice and vice versa.
That's a huge thing. Even if you're just doing microphone, guitar, vocal, the pickup pattern thing can really get rid of a lot of stuff.
Right.
And also, you know, every singer and every guitar player, as we know, is different. Some people will be finger picking something really softly, and they get to the chorus and they're singing very loud.
Right.
Or vice versa. They're really strumming along, but they have a real delicate voice. You don't know what you're going to get, so our job was to eliminate as many problems as we could on the front end that we knew we could encounter, and hope for a good product on the back end. And it seemed to work.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So now when you expanded that, say you add a upright bass, what were you doing to integrate that as well and not get bleed and to control everything that was happening?
The upright bass, you know, as we know, the low end, you know,
It gets everywhere.
So we would almost separate the bass player behind them and off to one side, which you can see in some of the photos and video. And they don't have to go far. I mean, you don't want to separate musicians to where they're out of their comfort zone, because people like line of sight. And, you know, in a lot of these situations where people are sitting in with each other, they may or may not know the song. And I don't think I saw a chart once. I saw some lyric sheets, but, you know, everybody's sometimes they're winging it. So to get the bass player away, there was even one situation where I had a mandolin player, and the bass player is behind him off to the right. And the biggest thing I did, or we did rather, to get rid of the low end in the 101 is have him move and put his body in front of it. So he's got the mandolin, the 101 is coming in at 45 degrees, and he's at 45 degrees, and the bass player is directly behind him. So just using the musician as a baffle worked great.
Yeah, right. Take advantage of what you have.
And every now and then, if you know, there was one or two times where we caught it, you know, he'd turn, and Dan immediately would catch it on the headphones and be like, no, go back. Let's do that again. So a lot of it, you know, is just using your eyes and common sense, and here's what you have to work with, and have realistic expectations of what you can get with that, and be real surprised what you come up with. I mean, as we know, there's so many records that have been recorded, like Motown stuff, for example. Everybody was in a room playing together. It sounds great.
Well,
you know.
And you don't have to be afraid of that bleed.
No,
in that style of music particularly, it can work to your advantage to get the room sound and everybody playing together.
Sure, and then there's other tricks too. You know, when doing a bluegrass ensemble, when we were running out of channels, one player specifically asked, he goes, hey, you know, I'm playing a lot of slap stuff. We had the 122 down at the bottom towards the F hole.
This is an upright bass now?
Yeah, an upright bass. And he's singing and, you know, slapping on the neck. Well, okay, so we just put the microphone between him and the neck, and we get both.
Sure.
Now, you know, if we were really polishing it and scoping it, that's probably not the best thing in the world, you know, you could do. But when you got 8 channels and you want to capture every part of the performance, that's an option.
Sure.
You know, it's not elegant, but you know, when you listen back to it and you turn on all the mics with the room mic, sounds really good. If you isolate the vocal track, you go, well, you hear all that bleed, and it's like, well, that doesn't sound good. Well, the only thing that matters is how it sounds in the mix. So.
Now, when you go to the mix part of the situation, you really were relying more on that SF24, that stereo mic out front, and using the individual mics more for presence and to kind of spotlight and bring out articulations and things. Is that the way you were working it? Was it really built around that stereo mic?
It was built around that approach. After listening back to the files, there are some songs where when we mix them, I'm pretty sure we're going to high pass the SF24 and make it more of an ambient thing where when a guitar player, like Kim Ritchie came in, Kim sings beautifully. She has a real delicate voice. She's playing real soft. That's not a room sound so much as a band would be. So on a situation like her, it's going to be more of the direct mics and blending in the SF24 just for body. Whereas with a bluegrass ensemble or 3 or 4 musicians, the SF24 is going to be up quite a bit in addition to those mics. You can kind of mix and match based on, you know, what's the song call for? You know, where's it going on its own?
And again, you have that option.
So
you can balance and work with things.
Yeah, room mics are great. You know, a lot of people think don't use a room mic if you're not in a great room, and if you don't have it, it can't help you.
Right. What does it hurt to capture it if you have the
channels?
channels?
If you got the channels, grab it.
Right, absolutely. So Mark, how did Sweetwater Studios get involved with this whole pop-up studio idea? And where did the idea originally come from?
That's a good question. Why would we do that for 3 days, for 16 hours a day?
Because it's fun.
It is fun. It's, I'm still 2 days off of it and I haven't recovered yet. The idea for the pop-up studio originally came from Dusty Wakeman at Mojave Audio. And he got sick at NAMM this year. Unfortunately, he couldn't be there. Dusty, hope you're feeling better. I'm glad you're feeling better. So John Jennings from Royer came out. But Dusty's idea originally was, hey, let's, there's a conference, there's a whole bunch of people standing in the hallway making music. Let's capture some of it. Let's be part of that. And it really is, a great idea. It's a lot of fun, and it completes that. So we saw Dusty do this in Toronto last year and ended up helping out at the Folk Alliance. So this year we said, hey, let's team up on this together. One of the things we like to do at Sweetwater Studios is go to Folk Alliance, go to South by Southwest. We're big supporters of all these conferences that bring artists together, for educational purposes, which is what a lot of it is, getting out there mingling with people. So we got together, we teamed up on it this time, and between us, bringing in some gear, and Mojave and Royer shipping out some of their stuff, and Auralex got involved and said, absolutely, please take, whatever you need. We're happy to be there for you.
Right.
It's a great way to go to an environment like that. It is a lot of fun. Give back to those people that are, they're really working hard. The Folk Alliance, a lot of those musicians and a lot of the indie bands that go to like South by Southwest, they're road warriors. They're out there getting in the van. They're working hard every week. They're putting in the long hours. So, honestly, it's just nice to get out there and meet those people and, give back and have some fun.
Sure.
Have them do something they wouldn't do in their home studio.
And there's an educational aspect to it as well.
Sure. We did have a lot of people that have home studios that are asking questions. Well, why are you using this mic, and why did you choose that pickup pattern? And it's a great way to educate them as well.
Right, which you've also done here. So thanks for coming in. We appreciate all the tips. A lot of great information there. If somebody's recording at home, if they're in an environment that's not a controlled studio environment, still be able to make great sounding recordings. A lot of tips here for making that happen. So we appreciate you coming in and sharing your experience and your knowledge with us.
Great.
Thanks for being here. I'm Mitch Gallagher. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute.
Just the night before when you were losing it, and nobody can deny you make a show. Now everyone around us says they give a damn about you. We'll make sure your enemies all get to know about your troubled times. Don't worry, I love you even when you're down. Take your time, don't hurry, I will always be around. You're rolled out of bed with a ton on your mind, no place for you to go unloaded. So instead you're gonna sweat out the time it takes for everyone to know about your troubled times. Don't worry, I love you even when you're down. Take your time, don't hurry, I will always be around. For someone who doesn't know a lot about maps, you sure know your way around this town. All that traveling and you barely learn to walk, it's time to lay your weary blues down. Lay 'em down, get back down. Yeah, get back down. Well, the summer's coming up and you still weren't down, just looking for another place to roll. There's people out there with some real problems. They be fortunate enough to get to know your troubled times. Don't worry, I love you even when you're down. Take your time, don't hurry, I will always be around. Your troubled times, don't worry, I love you even when you're down. Take your time, don't hurry,